Well, we all know that eating a healthy lunch is an important part of a good school day. But what do you pack if you have a picky eater at home, like me? Pediatric dietitian Amy Reed joins us this morning via Zoom with some tips. Good morning, Amy. Always good to see you. So I have a picky eater. You've helped me before with things like this. What do you do, first of all, if your kids don't like sandwiches? My kid only eats like 2 things. So what are some examples of sandwich alternatives?
And well, this is something that I deal with in my household as well. So typically, some of the ideas I have an example right here where I have a hummus cup and then whole grain crackers, a cheese stick, and some like veggies, and then you can pack a fruit to go along with it. So that's one example. Another example, sometimes kids kind of like a brunch for lunch. So you could maybe do a whole grain muffin with a hard-boiled egg and some fruits and vegetables. And it's amazing, like my kids, when they were younger and they didn't want sandwiches, they would eat cold pizza. So I would maybe do like a whole grain pita and I would make it into a pizza and they would eat that cold in their lunch. So there's different options. The other thing is sometimes they like things in a thermos. And so I have an older son now that doesn't like sandwiches and he prefers a hot lunch, but doesn't want to get the lunch at school. So I pack things in a thermos. There's a few things to look for if you are using a thermos. One, I think your son is a little guy, so he may not be able to actually open some of the thermoses. They can have a pretty wide mouth. So you want to make sure you have a thermos that he can open. The other is thermoses can have different variations. Like this one I have, for example, has a pretty narrow opening, so it might be harder for younger kids to get the food out. This one has a wider opening. However, it might be harder for them to unscrew the cap.
Or put in their lunchbox, yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is making sure that the thermos will keep the food hot enough. So some thermoses will keep food hot for 7 to 9 hours. Others may only keep it hot for 4 to 5. So it all depends on when you're packing that lunch and when your child has to eat. So just making sure you're purchasing the right kind and you're preparing it correctly as well.
Are there any food safety issues that we need to be aware of if we're packing hot or cold foods, like in a thermos or in another way?
So for the thermoses, I talked about prepping the thermos. Most thermos manufacturers recommend that you put boiling water in the thermos for 5 minutes and let it sit there sealed. That's to heat up the sides of the thermos, because if you put hot food into a cold thermos, the thermos will take the heat from the food and it won't stay as hot as long. A lot of people want to skip that step, but I always do it because I've heard it just keeps the food hotter longer. The other thing is when you want cold foods cold, like the hummus and cheese or a hard-boiled egg, one thing some people do is they will freeze a hot water bottle freeze a water bottle, and then it'll kind of thaw until lunchtime, and then your child has a really cold drink to quench their thirst, especially on hot days like today. The other is an ice pack. These you can buy at most stores. They're all over, usually at the beginning of school. Some may come in characters for younger kids. You just keep these in your freezer, put them in when they come home from school, and then repack the lunch the next day. And you do that. I would recommend anything that is dairy, meat, any kind of food that we normally store in the refrigerator, like yogurt, that it needs to be kept with a cooler pack.
Yeah, especially on these hot days. Oh, great advice there. Thank you so much. You always have good information, and you can find more healthy eating info from experts like Amy Reed at eatright.org, and we're going to have a link to that at local12.com. Amy, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.